Hey guys, another great edition of Quarantine with Coaches. I got a personal favorite guest of mine. He's my college head football coach, now the new head coach of Washington University in St. Louis. Head football coach Aaron Keene. How you doing, Coach Keene?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this. If 17 years ago when I committed to play for you at Illinois College, I would have said two things. One, at some point in your career, you would be a guest on Quarantine with Coaches on Zoom, posted to Twitter and YouTube. What would you have said? That was weirder, or would you have said going back to WashU and taking over for Larry Kinbaum after 32 years would be weirder? Which one of those would be the weirder comment?
Oh, I would say, being quarantined as we are, having to go through this pandemic and, joining coaches on Zoom meetings and running Zoom meetings with your players and trying to install that way. I mean, it's all been very weird. And, I was actually just discussing with Larry Kinbaum today just some of the different things that we're going through right now that we would have never thought that we're having to deal with. And, I think it makes it even more interesting when you're dealing with your players who are so intelligent and can analyze things so quickly and ask great questions and always want to know more information. I would definitely say that part of it has been a little bit more weird.
Yeah. Before we dive into your coaching background, I find your path interesting, how you got into coaching. And, you're a WashU grad, so you're pretty intelligent. And, I'm sure there's not a lot of your peers that are coaching right now. When did you decide that this was going to be your path? And at what point in the journey did you know? Was there some type of moment that just hit you?
Yeah, I can say I didn't go to college with the idea that I would be a football coach. My father was my high school football coach. I knew that I didn't really want to be a high school teacher and coach. And a lot of it was just, watching my father's experience dealing with parents at that level. And, it just wasn't something that I loved. I ended up majoring in secondary education, interestingly enough, as well as history. And probably not the smartest move, being that I thought I probably didn't want to be a teacher and a coach. But I felt like it would help me in the process of being a college coach and give me a kind of a fallback plan, if you will. I think I, settled on being a coach as I went through college and got to know Coach Kinbaum, Coach Ron Collins, our defense coordinator, Coach Dan Allison, our offensive coordinator. Those are all guys that had a significant impact on me. And I saw the relationships that they had with players, the amount of fun they had going to work every day, the passion they had for it, for football, but also developing the relationships and developing a program. And I kind of fell in love with it. And, I had a graduate year where I had an NCAA postgraduate scholarship. And so I could go to graduate school for free and kind of served as a quasi-GA at WashU that year. And so I got a closer look at what they got to do on a day-to-day basis and just absolutely fell in love with it.
Awesome. And now you're back at WashU where your coaching career started, obviously your playing career as well. But the previous 6 years you're at Eastern Michigan, right? What was it about this opportunity at WashU that led you to come back and leave maybe the D1 level?
Sure. Well, when I took the job at Eastern Michigan, I told our head coach, Chris Creighton, that I certainly wanted to be a head coach again. I'd been a head coach for 7 years up to that point, 5 at Illinois College, Division III level, 2 at Division II level at Minnesota State University, Mankato. And, I truly enjoyed my time as a head coach. I told her, again, Chris Creighton, that I felt like it was in my DNA to be a head coach. That's where I feel like I'm best from a motivational standpoint, relationship standpoint, organizational standpoint. I just feel like that's what I'm meant to be. And, I think he understood that. And I didn't look at too many opportunities, to be honest with you, when I was at Eastern Michigan. When this kind of popped up, when Coach K let me know that, he was going to be retiring at the end of the year, I obviously had thought about this job for a long time. I just never thought that he would ever retire. And so I'd kind of given up on the possibility of doing it. So I had to do some soul searching on it and what direction I wanted to head. And it all just came back to the fact that I wanted to be a head coach. Head coaching jobs are tough to find. And I think particularly a head coaching job that you're going to have some passion for that institution and that program, and that you can make it a long-term stay. And so that's what was intriguing about, this position.
Yeah. One thing you hear guys say in the profession is to never take over for a legend, right? And certainly Larry Kinbaum is that, 32 years, 200-plus wins. How do you navigate that moving into this role now? Obviously, trying to make this your own, but honor him as well. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Well, I'm in an interesting situation because honestly, I look at Coach K as almost like a second father to me. I had a great relationship with my father, and he was my high school coach. I moved on to college, as an 18-year-old kid from Cheyenne, Wyoming, going to the big city in St. Louis and starting college football. I was mentored by a great person in Larry Kinbaum, and he taught me a lot about competitiveness and positive mental attitude and a lot about life, and so it was an impactful time for me. And I've patterned a lot of what I do from a coaching standpoint off of what I learned from Larry Kinbaum in the 4 years I played for him and the 8 years I coached for him. And so, when you mention taking over for a legend, I mean, there's a couple things. I don't view our program as going to be very, very much different, with Aaron Keene in charge as opposed to Larry Kinbaum. And I think that's, also impacted by the fact that I've been able to keep Coach Kinbaum on our staff as an assistant right now. And so he's still going to have a hand in what we do as a football program, and I'll be able to lean on him for advice. And I think that's going to certainly be a really beneficial thing for me as a head coach taking over for a legend.
And you got hired earlier this year, right before the pandemic. How have you gone about building relationships, instituting the culture during this time?
Well, that's certainly been a challenge. It's coming from the FBS level where we had so much contact with our players. It has been a little bit different to be back at Division III where, our guys went through an 8-week strength and conditioning cycle with our strength coach at Washington University. He did a great job with them, but I didn't have daily interaction with him. I'm not in the weight room with him. Didn't have a bunch of meetings that I could have. So I had one team meeting with him at the beginning where I could introduce myself and talk about culture and my expectations. Got an opportunity to see those guys on a daily basis as they walked past our office suite to the weight room. But, I think the part that I missed out on is we were supposed to be starting spring football, which for a Division III coach, that's a really impactful, powerful time for us to be able to, teach our standards of expectation and get to know our players a whole lot better. And really big part of relationship building is those players seeing you coach, and you get to see them under stressful situations and kind of hammer out some things that maybe need to be hammered out on before you get to your season. So we missed out on that. So we've, done our best to simulate our install through Zoom meetings and, get to know our guys, and, certainly would want to have more meetings with our groups to be able to dive into some leadership aspects with them. And, sports psychology has always been a big thing for me, and I'd love to have some sessions with them on that. But, the other part of Washington University, which is a little bit unique, is our guys have a lot of time commitments, a lot of challenges, and they're finishing up their finals this week. So we've also got to be mindful of academic schedules.
You said it time and time again. You played for your father. You played for Coach K. I actually played for your father too, so I know all about him. And now you're at a point now where you look down, your players list. You've now produced a lot of coaches, right? What advice do you give to young coaches who are trying to emulate the career you've had?
Well, it's the icy cradle of coaches, right?
Right, exactly.
I take a great deal of pride in the amount of guys that have played in programs I've been associated with that are getting into coaching. And I think, you're no different than any one of those guys. And I think most of those guys are more concerned about the relationship part of coaching than the X's and O's. All those guys, including you, do a great job with the scheme, but it's more about the experience. And that's something I take a great deal of pride in. That's what I love about it. What I would say to anybody who wants to get into the profession, and you hear it said all the time, is, don't look too far ahead. I think there are too many coaches that are always worrying about the next step. I never thought of myself as a Division I football coach. I ended up coaching FBS football as a coordinator, and, we had a good amount of success at Eastern Michigan. I'm proud of my time there. But I think, the key for me, wherever I've been at Division III, Division II, FBS level, head coach, assistant coach, I've always enjoyed where I'm at. And I'm not really looking for the next step. Now, I think there are some things I probably could have done better over the years as far as networking and trying to set myself up for some things. But, I always looked at it as there's a plan. And, if you do a really good job, then people are going to reward you for that job. And the next steps will kind of fall into your lap. And so my advice would be to enjoy the process that you're in, enjoy the institution you're at, enjoy that football program, put your heart and soul into it, and the right things will happen for you.
Awesome. Hey, before I let you go, ready to do some rapid fire?
You bet.
Yeah. Show you've been binging.
I'm a huge Ozark fan.
There we go.
So, when that came out with the third season, I got through that pretty quick. So I got to find some other things to look at.
Yeah. Best or maybe the biggest impact, the book that you've read?
I'm a big fan of John Gordon's books. Winning the Locker Room First has probably been the most impactful for me. Just, at the different places I've been, to never forget that relationships are the most important part of what you're doing in your football program or from a leadership standpoint. And so it was a great reminder for me in reading that book.
Yes or no to this question: will Larry Kinbaum have a tie on the sidelines next year?
I would assume so, but I don't know. We haven't talked about that. It's been 30-some years with the tie on the sideline. So, and I've seen an old picture of him as a GA for Woody Hayes. He had a tie on there, so I would assume that'll stay on.
St. Louis food item you're most looking forward to? Oh,
that's a great question. There's such great and underrated barbecue in St. Louis. I would say that would be an option, but this might be an odd one, but I'd say Emo's Pizza. Working with Mike Glass, our quarterback at St. Louis over the last couple of years, he's a St. Louis native, and we beat Illinois this year, and he got on the bus, and the first thing he showed me was a big Tupperware container full of Emo's pizzas. His parents brought him. So, that was something we shared, was a passion for Emo's Pizza and the salads.
Nothing better than the square beyond compare.
You bet.
Hey, last question. This is a little personal, okay, but this came from one of my former teammates. Was it a good day, a good practice, if the defense dominated practice that day?
Okay, so I'm an offensive coach, and I think any offensive coach who's the head coach, you're going to get them about getting your butt whooped in practice by the defense, and it's naturally a bad day. I think I've grown over the years, and I've gotten past that, and I can separate being a head coach and an offensive coordinator now. I can reward the defense for having a great day.
It was a bad day. It was a bad day if Pete Jennings had a bad day. That's true. When I was at Illinois College, it's certainly, if the defense got after us that day, and Coach Jim Ryan down at Rhodes College could tell you he was our defensive coordinator, it was usually not a very good day. Awesome. Hey, I appreciate your time, Coach. Thanks for coming on Quarantine with Coaches. All right, Tim. Thanks a lot for doing this.